David Solomon. We're here to bring you unfiltered, uncensored conversation on a wide range of topics from all over the world. This podcast is dedicated to giving an opinion, express ours, hear your thoughts, talk about them, give experiences and ideas, and hear from a variety of perspectives. Yes, guys, a variety. That's not just left and right, it's up, down, and all around. Join us as we dive into the latest news, pop culture, politics, so much more. From rants about absurdity in modern life, like we're about to get into, and deeper issues affecting society. At the Rant Network, we have you covered. Take a look at our website, catch some of our old podcasts, find us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever. We're out there. David, when we talk about promises and we talk about, I guess, integrity, it seems that the Commonwealth has a rift where Great Britain is calling out Canada for liar, liar, pants on fire, on how Trudeau likes to fill his pockets and not share. What is this?
That wasn't the core of the article. So let's go to the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. So at the risk of going back to some of our previous rants where Stuart and I got locked out of Facebook and YouTube over questioning the way our governments handled COVID, the British Medical Journal looked at Canada as a litmus test and said, so how'd you do with your COVID response? And got an F. And why did Justin Trudeau and the rest of Canada get an F? Is because even though Canada got relatively away, somewhat scathe-free, they said it was more luck and Canadians compliant, but the federal and provincial governments really had no plan and were misaligned. Well, that was the core of it. So let's go through the numbers, okay, shall we? According to an article in The Guardian, and this came in the National Post in Canada and other publications, COVID killed more than 52,000 Canadians and infected 4.6 million, giving it a death rate of 1,372 per million, compared with the global average of 855 per million. That's 50% more. Now, Canada, come on, you had a great vaccination rate, right? You did all these wonderful things. Why were we shit? And the government, what we found is that in typical Canadian fashion, we talked a great game. Thank you, not Canadian way, a liberal Trudeau way. We talked a great game, but we didn't execute. And in Toronto, 69% of reported COVID cases apparently belong to racialized groups such as Blacks and South Asians. Now, the Ontario government collected racial data. Quebec refused. Okay, typical racial way of Quebec working, they refused. So we don't know what Quebec is, but the numbers in across Canada were atrocious. At one point, Stuart, if you recall, Quebec was the 6th worst place in the world per capita for COVID. And it's amazing, such an advanced society, why is it so bad? The medical system failed. There was no planning. That was the first part. But the second part that really got after Trudeau was Justin Trudeau was that kid in the schoolyard that wanted everybody's candy and said he would share. He bought enough vials of vaccine to vaccinate us all 4 and 5 times. But we didn't need it. It didn't go there. So these soon-to-be expired vaccines were promised to be sent to third world countries who couldn't afford it, because the pharmaceutical companies and the federal government in both our countries, by the way, wanted more money. And so Trudeau bought more, hoarded more, so he would, to compensate for the pharmaceutical companies that can't charge as much in Canada. Yippee-ki-yay. So by the way, we threw out millions of vials in Canada. They didn't go to third world countries. So once again, Trudeau painted himself as a wonderful leader and he's going to be helpful and altruistic, and didn't follow through, but blamed the process. He blamed people. We didn't have vials of vaccines, Stuart, in our provinces because the federal government says, no, we'll buy and then we'll share it with the rest of Canada. We waited weeks to get the vaccines. It was a shit show and a half. But congratulations, Justin. What did you do? You blamed the Freedom Convoy. You blamed others for all that went wrong with COVID. And the British Medical Journal says, look, we in Britain launched an inquiry into improving the process because there will be another pandemic. It did. It's what the inmates are going to run the asylum here. We're going to let Trudeau run another inquiry into himself. We already did this with Chinese influence, Stuart. It's a rant that I did while you were away. But of course not. You think the Liberals are going to investigate themselves? Of course not. It won't matter. The blessing here is, and the same thing could be done in the United States, and the Journal did not talk about the United States, but if you look at the United States, you're going to say the same thing. Mm-hmm. Was there alignment between the U.S. states and the federal government when it came to COVID? No. Each state, province in Canada and the United States decided no matter what the federal government wanted, we're going to do our own thing. Quebec, we had curfews. We were the only place in all of North America that had freaking curfews.
No, we had curfews. We had curfews in Florida. There were curfews in the United States. It wasn't the only place. Just to correct you,
so
but
in Canada, we were the only place. Let's put it that
way. Because remember, COVID spreads more at night.
Yeah, well, apparently, and so look, you look at what they're doing, the pushing of the of COVID, and the one thing the British Medical Journal also pointed out was fear mongering. And Stuart, you got a doctor in the United States who's running on all the lefty liberal stations talking about Barbie, the movie, is going to cause another spreader event. Like, what I'm saying to you is, we have learned nothing from COVID.
Actually, David, we've learned, you've actually did a good job. It took a lot of space up here. David, there is a lot to be learned from COVID. One, governments decided that they like control and power, and people decided to give the government more control and power as to not argue, which was the issue with the convoy across Canada. And the reason why Justin Trudeau had to shut it down, I believe, unlawfully, because it was a free cruise across Canada. It was parking in areas where you can park, where the outcome is a parking ticket. They were willing to take it. But Trudeau, no different than his father, is a bully, a racist, and a liar. And you know what? I think he's not the exclusive member of that club. In fact, today, politicians will say whatever they need to say to get your vote and get elected. And it's we the people, not coining the phrase from the American document, we the people, but we the constituents of our respected countries, provinces, and states have very short, stupid memory. And then we give excuses why we want to allow a media. Remember, media and news are not the same thing. And we have the media, which is no different than Hollywood. If you recall, we had trials produced by an ABC producer because it became media, not news. So politicians now do what they want and have zero recourse. In fact, until we, the people, hold these politicians to the fire, and like you said, David, earlier, you can't impeach in Canada. There's no mechanism. There's only voted non-confidence. But I promise you that if we, the people, don't decide to put our foot down and hold these people accountable, I think that we have a slippery slope that makes the woke movement look like molasses. Very slow.
But to your point, and I'll tell you, one of the things that really is aggravating is if you were to do this investigation in the United States, you'll find probably the same thing as in Canada. And we heard this. Minorities did not get the vaccines. There wasn't the distribution to minorities was not there. First Nations in Canada got screwed. Justin Trudeau, to show you the idea, on one hand, apologizes for all the atrocities and then repeats them. And this is and they were called out by the British Medical Journal. Like, First Nations in Canada did not get vaccines in time. If you look in the United States and you look at minorities across the US, you heard that again and again and again. I don't care what state you're in. You heard that the governments did not distribute it properly. But it's all going back to planning. Is there a pandemic plan in place in the Biden administration? Is there a pandemic plan in the Trudeau government? No, apparently not. It's, go by the seat of your pants and whatever happens, happens. Who cares who dies? As long as I get reelected. And I think that this is what has happened, is that these governments are now being called out, and this isn't fear mongering by the British Medical Journal. I am impressed by this. And if you read the document, it literally calls out Canada and saying, shame on you. You say one thing, you didn't do it. You killed 50% more people than the rest of the world per million. Okay. For what? Why? Because you were misaligned, and you're still misaligned. You're still not ready. If tomorrow there's another pandemic and people say, oh, it only happens every 100 years, it's not a big deal. It's not true, people. Okay, there have been other pandemics. This was a global pandemic, but there have been regular pandemics that have been coming through our countries. We've been lucky not to turn it into something serious, but we are not ready. Our medical system, our hospitals, we burnt out our medical folks because of a lack of a plan. We killed old people who are in old age homes. See New York, see Quebec, see other places, because we weren't ready.
Yep.
That's what this British Medical Journal is calling out, and kudos to them. The problem I have is that, yes, the medical community wants an inquiry, but that's like the inmates running the asylum. I mean, it's to me, what are you going to get out of it? Is there going to be an independent body? Could there be an independent body in either of our countries, Stuart, who could actually conduct an inquiry without politics? I don't think it's even possible.
No. David, it's kind of like when the police investigate police. Today, it's a political arm of the government. There is no accountability, no independent ombudsman that is going to defend and protect you. It is sad, it's pathetic, and it's just the way it is. I wish there was a better answer to give. Guys, David, take the last word here.
Before you jump in and cut us off, because we're a little bit early. Here's the problem, right? And we're different. But if you look at right now what we spend in Canada on our long-term care facilities, you're talking about $20 billion a year, federal and provincial funding in Canada. So if it's 20 billion here, it's going to be 200 billion in the United States. Like, think of that amount. And look how we killed people because we didn't invest in our elderly. I mean, that's a lot of money. Where's the money going if not to help and save them? Okay, there is no coordination. My guess is if you look in the United States and in Canada, there's no coordination whatsoever. And the frail, the minorities, they're the ones who are going to get impacted the next time this happens. And this is not just a Canadian story. This is not a U.S. story. This is an international story. It frightens me that we've given the keys to the government to take care of us, and they're dropping the ball again and again. And like you said, how do we hold them accountable? Well, the ballot box, but we're not there
now
yet.
When the ballot box is stuffed. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for tuning and listening to the Rant Network. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. David spoke very well. Gained some valuable insight. I never knew the British government hated Canada. We appreciate your support and I hope I'm just joking around. Next time for a more thought-provoking conversation, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern. You never know what we're going to talk about next. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on social media. Please, guys, we need your support. We're spending the time. We're trying to give you perspectives, give you news, give you information that you're not getting from your independent news source or media source. Some of you don't watch the news. You watch media. But on that note, David, thanks on. Keep on ranting. David, say goodbye.